Hey, everybody, welcome back to the 85th episode of Taps and Patience. I am AJ with Audacity here with Harrison from Precision Ingenuity. How you doing, Harrison?
I am way too tired for not being as busy as I have been.
I mean, like, sometimes you come out of being super busy and then your body's like, I'm done with this for a bit. And you just kind of, like, it takes a couple days to recuperate once you're not busy.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad that and this is such a weird thing to say. Like every time I've mentioned this to someone, they're like, "You're glad you're not busy?" I'm glad I'm not busy right now. We need a chance to work on the shop, get some things cleaned up, get our ducks in a row in a couple areas. And then I really want to try to go out this week because I've been trying to do this for, I think, months at this point, go out and meet other shops. And I finally have the opportunity if I can seize it before we get busy again. And I'd like to do that. I'd like to go
Yep,
try to make a couple more connections because
makes sense.
it's already Wednesday. It's going to be Wednesday tomorrow, and so half the week's going to be gone, and I still haven't made it up. And I haven't really had anything going this week. But, anyways, what's going on with you?
So I was sick yesterday. Basically, like a really bad cold. Like, I was just constantly sneezing and coughing. I woke up this morning and I was a little bit coughing-y, but not nose running or sneezing. But I was just so dead today. I was so exhausted. I think because my body is still, like, I'm still half sick. So I have not gotten very much done today. And if you hear me cough or blow my nose, that's why, podcast listeners. Last week was rough. We didn't record last week because of me, mostly because just about everything I did went poorly. But this week, as of Friday, I shipped the last Xometry job I had on my work schedule. And I did take two more today, but for the most part, I'm now caught up on Xometry work, or ahead, I should say. And I'm still recording those Fusion videos, which I'm very behind on. So I was hoping to get those packaged up and not shipped, but delivered today. But I couldn't record anything yesterday because I was so stuffily. And then today, I just got basically nothing done. I edited like one video and then like went and took a nap. So hopefully tomorrow I can finish up recording what I need to record, and then in a day or two be done editing.
That'll be good.
So, and then I have one Xometry part for Monday, and then one for like way in the future.
We only have a handful of jobs on our board, but I will say we'll have the largest titanium Xometry job coming up that we've ever done, at least for single pieces. The material is something in the neighborhood of 1 inch thick by 6 inches wide, and it's 1 foot long material, and we're getting 6 parts out of it.
Okay. Yeah, it's a big chunk of titanium.
Yeah. So, but we got it relatively cheap. It was only like $200 or something.
Okay, that's not bad.
No. So, looking forward to saving as much of that material as possible.
Yeah.
But
this upcoming job I have is titanium, but like I bought a 1 inch diameter bar for Design the Everything like 2 years ago, and I never touched it. Like I haven't made a single part out of it, and I can finally break into that bar. Though for my two parts, I need a grand total of 3/4 of an inch.
oh, nice. But okay. I'm trying to remember what even last week was. Everything's a blur right now. I will say this though. I went and I worked at a different shop in the area all morning today.
Oh, really?
That was interesting. Mm-hmm. So, helping them out.
Tell me more about that. Why I sneeze.
So, they're a shop in the area. We've done some work with them in the past, and they're great people. They've helped us out a bunch when we were first getting started. They gave us some overflow work, and it was awesome. And they are, I've talked about them some on the podcast. They are a shop that has been in the industry for like 80 years or something. And like all of their customers that they've had for over 30 years, it seems like. And they had a part that came in where to kind of describe what the project was, it was a seat for a vintage car,
Okay.
and you can't buy the frame of that seat anymore. And so they had someone that came in that wanted to scan an original seat,
Hmm.
create a model from it, and then create a buck for that he can form the sheet metal around to make reproductions of the seat.
Interesting.
And they have the ability to scan it, but none of them have the skill set to take that scan, turn it into a model, and then program it to run on their machine. And so I facilitated that aspect of it. And so for the very first time, I loaded a program on a Mazak, and at least for the machine that I was using, I wanted to shoot myself because of how much of a pain it was. Part of my frustration comes from the fact that I spent 3 hours trying to get the program on the machine, and I kept getting a formatting error. And I was checking everything in the code, trying to figure it out and comparing it to other programs that they had, only to find out at the end of the day it was the fact that my program had a space in the name, and that's not allowed. And
Yep.
I didn't know that.
I totally saw that coming as soon as you said that.
And so, yeah, I searched everywhere online I could find, and no one that I found said anything about space being an issue. So yeah, that was frustrating.
I went through that at my last day job. We bought a new laser at one point, and it had something dumb like that. It was like you couldn't do spaces, but I think you also couldn't do capitals. And it took me forever to figure that out.
Yeah. And so finally got that figured out. And then my next problem I ran into is the program I wrote was 1.5 or maybe 2 megabytes. I think it was 2 megabytes in size. And their controller only had 1 megabyte of space. So I had to break it down. I think I had to break it into 3 separate programs because depending on the file path I chose or the tool paths I chose, it would overrun that 1 megabyte limit. And so that was a pain. And then another thing that was kind of interesting is on my Haas, anytime I write a new program, I can just override the old one. On
Hmm.
the Mazak, it'll throw an error and you have to go in, find the file, delete it, and then load it in again.
Interesting.
And so like there was just a lot of little oddities and frustrations of running a program on a new machine for the first time, but it was a good experience for me and for their shop. Their shop desperately needs some help in the technology side. Don't get me
Uh-huh.
wrong, they're an amazing shop at what they do, but they're a shop that's existed for 80 years and they don't know what they don't know
Yep.
type. So, like cuz like this part had some angles on it and they don't have a 5 axis, but they had a 4 axis. And I was like, man, I wish you had your fourth axis set up with a vise on it so where we could rotate the part up on an angle and do that. And their head machinist was like, oh, I've never thought of that. And it's just like,
It's like, why do you have a
oh,
fourth axis?
oh my goodness, for round parts and keyways and whatnot.
Okay,
But
that's fair.
it was just kind of funny, like just talking to them and just like I would suggest something. He's like, oh, I never would have thought of that. And it's like, get on Instagram, dude. People are posting all kinds of crazy stuff. So
So I had, on a similar vein, I had an incident last week where I broke my Renishaw probe tip, which that's a story in itself. But I like absolutely needed it for the parts that I was making. They had some like there was no good way to hold them for a side operation. And it was like fine, I could just stick them in a vise and then probe to find where the center was and pop my hole in the side. And I'd made these parts before. It was my first repeat zometry work. And but I was like, okay, I'm getting into how I broke the probe tip. So I got them all set up. I got the part in there. I was like, okay, I really, really want to make sure this hole's in the right place. It was like a +2 -0 positional tolerance. It's like I'm gonna get everything dialed in, and I ran the calibration bore routine, and then I did the height routine, and I dialed in the height on the tool setter thing. And when you do that, it turns on the tool setter, but it leaves the probe off. And so I finished that up. I jogged back over to my part. I got everything lined up. The program was going to do the actual like probing for the actual part, but I needed to set just like my approximate work coordinate system so it would know where to probe. And I looked over my macro screen and I made sure that it wasn't the probe the center of the bore program, which is the one or probe the center of a square part program, which is the one that I use the most other than the just Z touch off. And I hit cycle start and it comes down just like normal and crunches my probe.
Oh.
Just the tip.
That's what she said.
I forgot to change from the calibration macro to the Z touch off macro. And at a glance, because it had a lot of the same parameters, it just looked the same to me at a quick glance when I checked it. But it doesn't turn on the probe, so it has no way of knowing if it is breaking the probe tip.
Ooh.
So I went ahead and I ordered a new one from McMaster, but like these parts were going to be late if I didn't ship them that day. And it was like 7 a.m. or something when I broke it. And so I was like, I'm just going to call shops in this area and beg them to let me borrow a probe tip. And I did eventually find a shop that let me borrow one. But I called like 8 different shops. And they were all like, they were either, we don't use probes at all, or it was, we have a probe, but it's in a drawer and we've never used it. And that was for like all of them. Eventually, I found one shop that was like, yeah, I think we might have one sitting around somewhere. It ended up being like 8 inches long, which was funny, but I was able to get those parts out. But it amazed me of all the shops I was talking to, how just like none of them had no concept of even relatively common like machining stuff. I don't know.
So, speaking of rent-a-shop probing routines, I'm going to talk about how the part was probed in that I ran today at the other shop. They have a rent-a-shop probe, and the guy had to go into maze, and I'm explaining it poorly, but he had to go into maze control like he was writing a program and to use it to probe. And then he took a photo with his phone, and then he went into the offset page and plugged in the numbers that he got there to update the offset.
It doesn't like, so it could probe and tell you the coordinates that it probed, but it couldn't update the offset.
It's something weird with maze control. I don't exactly understand what he was saying.
This feels like him not knowing how to use the macros.
And that's basically, I asked him, I was like, do you not have a macro where you put it over the part and it touches both sides and the length and the top? And he's like, the machine might be able to do it, but I don't know how to do it that way, so I'm going to do it this way. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. But he's like, what? I don't need it for the way I run my machine. I'm like, fair enough, I guess. But
yeah.
I mean, there's more shops like that than the other way, unfortunately. Or I guess fortunately. Depends on how your perspective, I guess.
Everyone talks about Industry 4.0, but let's be realistic. A lot of the shops around here are struggling with like Industry 2.0.
Yeah. But, it's... I'm glad I can go in because this is a gentleman that I've programmed parts for him in the past. I brought him into my shop. I showed him how we program parts with Fusion. And then he went back to his shop and said it was a waste of time. And that's the dumbest thing ever. And the way they do it is much faster. And then this time when I came over there to run these parts, he started talking about the parts that we programmed last time. He's going, I've been thinking a lot about it and I really want to try it now. And it's like, okay, so he's like coming around. And so,
Yeah. You can then show them the container method and blow their mind with how fast you can program
yeah,
parts.
no, that
I
would
know
hurt their
that's too
brains.
advanced.
That
I
would hurt their brains.
programmed, they were
Adding
relatively
chamfers to
simple.
parts blew their mind.
Yeah, okay, fair. But like with one of my templates today, I programmed 3 parts in under 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, again, these were fairly easy ones that just dropped into my templates and worked. But like, if your templates are good enough, then most of your parts will be.
Yeah. And to be fair, I'm not even that great with templates yet. I haven't even set up very good ones yet. But
Yeah, you need to dig into those more.
I've got a template set up for the 5-axis with the container method. I just don't have any I don't have any code in it. I set it in there
Like the
and
tool paths.
yeah, I don't have any toolpaths in it.
What's the whole
So
point?
not exactly, because this one's for the 5-axis. I have the material parametric, and
Hmm.
I have the vice parametric, and I have all my offsets predefined. So literally, I stick the part in there, and then I start programming immediately. I've already got all the probing set up. So the probing is the only thing, and the op zero dovetail, if I want it, are the only two things that are fully programmed.
So generally, when I stick a part into one of my templates, all I do is delete toolpaths. Occasionally, I have to change like a height or something, but for the most part, all I do is delete toolpaths and post code.
To do that with the 5-axis, I would need to create so much code because I have trees that are like 2 pages long of code,
Oh, it's an investment. Don't get me wrong.
and
Like,
I have yet to find every part that I've put on the 5-axis. I'm starting on a different face
mhm.
depending on what the part is, and I haven't found anything that's remotely close to like beneficial without like deleting 80% of it and just keeping 20% of what's left.
Well, that's fine if you delete 80% of it because deleting 80% is super quick.
It it is, but I'm finding with a lot of the, especially the bigger stuff, I need to take material off in specific locations in specific orders, and it's very part dependent. And I can program, like I said, I can program that in, but you're talking about programming that for 5 sides and deleting out 4 out of the 5 sides, depending on which direction I need to attack it from first. And then I'm bouncing all over the place, rotating it and changing tool orientations. And I found a good way to make that flow smoothly.
It is something that I will need to play with, I guess is what I should say. I had them set up for the Pocket NC, but on the Pocket NC, my templates were very specific to branding irons because that's what I was doing
Mm-hmm.
at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I will hold judgment until I have done it myself, but I think it's totally possible.
And what I do, which is a lot faster, is I will find the closest looking part to what I've run, and I'll copy from that model. And then my code's basically laid out, and I just got to point things and then change a few things. So once I've set up a part, I can copy that part, delete out the original, add in the next one, and repoint everything. And that's my templates per se.
Yeah. So why don't you just take some of those parts and make them into templates and like generalize the tool paths a little bit more
Be-
and
because
just like have a library of them.
I have so many different parts that are so different that without having the original part in there, I don't know what I would like. I would have to have such a specific name for it. It's almost like having a photo library versus having a description of a photo, and not necessarily like having to have such a long description that you forget its actual meaning.
I mean, yeah, that's fine. Like Fusion
So,
does previews.
so I just go and I just find the model because I would just have a library of every single 5-axis part I've done in one folder then. And I mean, at that point, what's the point of organizing it?
I still think there's a way.
There could be. I'm not denying it. What I'm saying is I have yet to find a method that works for the variety of parts that we're running. And I've got everything that I think is beneficial is in there. I could probably add in a couple more features, but it's real easy to just add them in normally anyways. So,
I'm not going to find it here, but someone on the Insta Machinist Discord showed off their like parametric setup, and I don't think they had container method toolpaths built in. Maybe they did. I don't know, but they had it set up with configurations where they could just toggle between all of the different setups they have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, parametric stock, parametric like vice mating, so it changed the size. It looked so clean and so good. And I think I definitely need to change to that. So
Let
combine
me
my
put
like 6 templates into one master template.
let me put it this way. I have 6 templates right now for 5-axis, and as soon as I find a problem with one, I have to go up 6 other templates. Otherwise, I'm updating the same problem over and over again. And I've
Mm-hmm.
already been doing that so much that if I had more than 6, I would go insane.
Yeah. So that's why I want to move to the like one master template instead of having 6 individual ones. Because for that same reason, I don't have toolpaths updated in some of my old templates that I just need to update, like to
Yeah.
use the right tool that I don't use anymore or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, there's overhead, but it saves you so much time in the end.
Yeah, but I'm already getting most of the benefit without having to set everything up. Like all the stuff that's repetitive is in there, and anything that is part specific, I just add in whenever I program the part. I can still program a part just as fast as if I was starting from scratch. I can program it much faster than if I was starting from scratch. Probably not as
Yeah.
fast as what you're talking about, but like I said, I feel like the variety of parts, I haven't found a good method for that yet.
Speaking of doing parts faster, right now on my end, the biggest time investment in parts, other than like running them, is setting up the machine itself, getting the right fixture on there. Well, mostly, getting the right fixture on there. So I think it's time to invest in a 0 point.
We have been
Um,
having that conversation, I think, daily for the last 3 weeks.
yeah, yeah, you guys need one more than I do, really.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. You can do a lot with 2 vices and then a vice on the 5-axis. You can do a lot with that. But what's really kicking our butt is we're getting into parts that have to span 2 vices.
Mm-hmm.
And um, those would be so much better if I could pop out those 2 vices and build a dedicated fixture that pops into them. Because that area in between the 2 vices can be very vibraty for thin parts. And
Yeah.
it's getting to that point where, especially if I'm doing job shop work, but I'm getting repeat parts, setting up a fixture where I can get op 1 and op 2 done at the same time, or just have more security where I don't have to do baby my machine or do weird things to not get chatter, will pay off in the long run greatly.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, for you, I would definitely go with like a Lang system because then you could also move vices from the horizontal position to your fifth axis without needing to unclamp the part.
mhm.
And like I could just see big gains for you there.
Yeah, we've been trying to decide between Shunk and Lang. Those are the two.
For you, I would totally go Lang.
Yeah, I've talked to different people, and I've gotten, I've had way more people that say we should go Shunk than Lang. I'm mainly for the reason of Shunk is, from what everyone's told me, is much easier to automate than Lang. If you have
Yes,
any
that is
idea of
true.
automation in the future, they said go Shunk.
Shunk is also like 3 times the cost.
Yes, it is.
And there are knockoff Langs that are half the price of Lang.
So, yeah.
Have you looked at like I think it's Max Tool? Max Tool. It may not be Max Tool. Anyway, I'll have to look up the name. But there is a company that makes pretty good quality Lang style stuff. What is that called?
Oh, the other reason to go with a fixture system is some of our parts are getting large enough that we could just machine pull studs and that be the way we hold them in the five
Yeah.
axis. Like,
It is Max Tooling with two X's, and they have a Lang style system. They might actually have a Shunk style system too. It's all cross compatible.
I also like the Lang system better than Shunk in the sense that if I was to put it on the 5 axis with Shunk, you're relying on a single pull stud, whereas on Lang you would be
Mm-hmm.
relying on 4 pull studs, and I feel like that'll just be a more rigid connection, but and take up less depth of material.
Yeah, no, I think either one of those would be fine. It's just the Lang stuff I think is good enough for you, and it is cheaper.
Yep. It's the question of, and it's the same question we have with tool holding. Do you save out and buy the most expensive thing, and then in the long run you would have saved money because you never spent money on the other item, but you
Mm-hmm.
also delayed getting it? And so,
Yes.
is that delay worth more money than the cost of waiting to get the more expensive item? And that's what
Yep.
I don't know. But I know the more I delay it, making a decision, the shunk will look better and better.
Yes.
It'll win by default by the analysis paralysis.
I may have lied about Max Tooling to have a Lang style system. They have a Roa style system and a 3R style system. Speaking of which, I have decided on 0 points that I'm going to get. I'm going to get a knockoff Roa system.
Knock off a
So
row.
with a pneumatic base, um, and probably put at least 2 units on my table. Because right now I basically use the Saunders as a, maybe not a 0 point, but a relatively quick fixture change, and I max out with pretty much 2 vices on my table. Normally, like a one of my little self-centering vices, and then a vice with soft draws. But going to the Aroa style system with a pneumatic thingy will let me just change those out super fast.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much you can do once you got a 0 point system in place. It just makes everything better.
Yep.
It's like what the Saunders plates were trying to do in a way.
Which
Because
it is way better than not having the Saunders plate. Like,
true,
I'm sure I am 10 times faster at throwing a vice on with that than I would be just putting it on like T slots. But
you say that, but I've never put the Saunders plates on our new machine, and I've never missed them.
literally all of my fixturing stuff is built around it, so I would miss it. But
That can be.
one of my rationales with going to the Aero system is, as I get, like, let's say that I get a new, bigger machine here in the near future, the fixture plate for that machine and is going to start at like $2,000. And as the machines get bigger, they only get more expensive. And it's
Hmm.
limited to that like one machine, and it's less flexible. Whereas a Iroa base, I can move around to any machine and I don't need that fixture plate anymore. Even though
Yeah,
I will be sincerely lost without it
yeah.
for a while. But
We gave the Saunders puck system a serious look, and I mean, you basically need to buy a base to mount them to keep them in position,
uh-huh.
or come up with your own system for it. And by the time you spend all the money getting everything you need,
It's more expensive than leg.
yeah,
Because you need at least 2 of the chucks at like pretty much a bare minimum, and you need to have the fixture plate.
yeah,
If those chucks had been like $500 instead of $1,000, I would have been all over them. I would have already had one. But at
yeah,
$1,000 plus the fixture plate, they just don't make a huge amount of sense.
yeah. Sad. So I was looking forward to it.
I like the idea. I feel like they just weren't quite there. Like, maybe they don't quite understand their customer, or maybe we're just not a typical customer. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't want to criticize anyone for being successful, and so if he's successful with that, then I'm not the customer.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're not for nobody, but I don't really understand what it is for. Maybe large parts. Like if you had some big fixtures, which actually, to be fair, they made it as a kind of for an in-house project, like for their own fixture plates. And fixture
Hmm.
plates are big things that need to be fixtured. So maybe
Yes.
that's where it makes sense because you
Yeah.
can space 6 of them like 12 inches apart.
Yeah. If you want to. So I
Yeah.
mean, it does give you a lot of flexibility to for what they're doing. But I don't think if you're looking for pure economy on 0 point systems, it doesn't pencil out. So what else do I got going on? Oh, I did that massive aluminum part, which
The
was
big
pretty
round
wild.
one.
Yeah, it was our biggest aluminum part, and it was a, 9 inch disc that was I think 4.5 inches thick, and we stuck it on the 5 axis, and it was a 3 inch 5 axis, and it was pretty wild.
Yeah.
We needed a 5 inch vise for that one, and I did it on a 3 inch, and that was kind of insane that it actually worked as well as it did.
I did a 7 inch long part in my 2 inch wide self centering Chinese vice the other day. Actually, it's this part. It's this right here.
Mm-hmm. Is that
It works
is that
shockingly well.
is that the Gridfinity in aluminum?
Maybe this has a whole story to it. There's going to be a video on this. Are we doing spoilers?
Yeah,
I
spoil it a little
guess.
for me.
Okay, well, backstory. So I have a new piece of equipment in my shop.
You do?
I do.
What'd
It's
you
not
get?
a not chip removal. I got an optical comparator. So I found a really, really good deal on one. I've been looking for an optical comparator forever. And literally the next best deal that I found was the one that Saunders was selling for $1,000. There were a bunch that were like in terrible shape. There were like 500 around me. Like there was a
Mm-hmm.
ton of them in that realm. And some that were just like giant. I think there was one that was like $100, but it was like huge. Like when it fit in my truck, huge. And but this one popped up on Facebook Marketplace. It was about 2.5 hours away, but it was $100 and it is in pristine shape. I have no
Nice.
idea what the brand is, so it's probably not a name brand, but it's in really nice shape. Like everything on it's basically perfect. But I needed a way to mount parts to it so that I can inspect them. You can put them on the table if they're big enough, but most of my parts are so small that I need some sort of a riser and some way of like orienting them so they're not at an angle to the light. And I was thinking about ways and talking to like Stefan on Instagram or on Discord. And the obvious way, like the smart thing, the thing I should have done is just make a rail that goes around along the back of it and then have some like blocks I can sit on top of there. That's the smart thing. But I was like, how dumb would it be to put a Gridfinity on my optical comparator? So I machined out a aluminum Gridfinity base plate that has some like reference rails there, and I can bolt it down to the T slot on the table. And so now I can just like pop in a fixture on my little Gridfinity thing. It doesn't need to be repeatable or that accurate. So like it could have been anything I wanted, but I thought this would be funny. So I did it.
That's
I'm making a video
hilarious.
about it. I don't, to be clear, I don't expect this to be the most practical and accurate thing. It was just for fun. The internet is going to be so mad at me when I publish that video.
I think that's pretty cool, though. I like it.
I modified the geometry of the Gridfinity a little bit so the blocks nest on this taper,
Mm-hmm.
which actually makes it relatively stable and repeatable because it's kind of like a tool holder.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think it'll be fine. I don't think it's going to be the perfect solution, but it'll be fun.
Nice. I had something I was going to say in there. Did I ever tell you about our optical comparator we got?
No, I didn't know you had one.
We got one at an auction for $20,
Oh, nice.
and it's a boat anchor. I mean, it's not bad, but it's one of those rough machines. It was also built in like the 50s, and the running joke in the shop is that it's one of the Titanic's anchors.
Does it
So
work? Like, can you use
yeah, it
it?
works. It needs to be
Okay.
cleaned up, and the light bulb is like you have to have every light in the known universe turned off to be able to see what's coming out of it. But we're gonna try to fix that.
Okay.
But we're gonna see. It's gonna be one of those items that we're gonna play around with. We're gonna clean it up. We're gonna see if we can get it working. If it doesn't, it's no big loss. We might either keep it as just a display item or see if there's anyone else that wants it. And
Hmm.
if worse comes to worse, and I don't want to, but if worse came to worse and I needed to get rid of it, it's a crap ton of weight in cast iron. So it would scrap for more than we paid for it.
Yep.
But I don't want to do that if I don't have to. And on that same vein, we picked up a surface grinder too.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, and we picked
Have
up
you
a
used
surface
that
grinder.
yet?
It's I haven't used it yet. It's a Cincinnati, and it also weighs 1,000,000 pounds. So Weston has an F-150 that we put a trailer on to pick this stuff
Hmm.
up along with a bunch of other stuff. And those two items alone caused the whole trailer and the truck to both squat like crazy. So we had the surface grinder on the front of the trailer and then the comparator on the back of the trailer. So in front and behind the axles. Both the trailer and the truck were squatting from those two pretty bad.
That's funny.
And so we were petrified coming back because we did not have enough straps, which is a whole funny story in itself. It was musical straps trying to figure out, everything had 0 to 1 straps
Hmm.
on it, but we weren't going far. We
Yeah.
just had to go careful.
Go slow.
So, and when we got back, I was worried our forklift wouldn't be able to lift them because they were
Hmm.
so heavy.
Do you have a forklift?
We have a forklift in the
I
new
didn't
shop.
know that. Man, your shop is so much more legit than mine.
Yeah, we have a forklift that can drive in about a 5 foot box
Because that's
of
all the room
space.
for it, or
That's all the room for it.
yeah.
Um, but we've got a little pad, and so this is a whole nother frustrating thing. We got the shop that had the 2 garage doors. We got the main machine in through the front garage door. We need to get another machine, and we're selling the Tormach, which hasn't sold yet for anyone interested. Please let me know.
Thanks 1500 MX.
But,
I said thanks 1500 MX.
yeah,
It just murdered all the 1100 sales.
yeah. But we had one garage door that had a pad, and then the other one that went out to gravel. And my dad was like, "Oh, the gravel will be fine for the forklift." It wasn't. It got stuck constantly.
Yeah, not
And
if there's any
so,
weight on it.
yeah. And so finally, my dad scheduled a contractor to come out and pour the concrete, and he took care of all of it for us because we weren't paying attention. And then, because we were busy doing a bunch of other stuff. And then
Hmm.
after the project was done, and I was talking to contractor, and I was like, "By the way, how thick did you make that?" And he made it like 3 inches or something like that, or like 3 or 4 inches. And I'm just like, could it support 15,000 pounds? And the guy goes, "What the heck is 15,000 pounds?" I'm like, that machine over there. Um, hang on, I got my dad actually calling me. Can you pause a second? All right, sorry about that interruption, but anyways, so long story short, they ended up pouring the concrete way too thin, and we might get the opportunity to remake the pad. So not by choice.
Interesting. I would think that would be fine. Concrete's pretty good and compressive. It's the thing that kills pads that you need thicker concrete for heavier machines is when they start to vibrate.
Yes, but doesn't the forklift put a lot of weight on unless it distributes it out? That's what I don't know.
I mean, between the four wheels, theoretically, sure. Um, I don't know. I think it would probably be fine.
But anyways, I talked to the guy who did the work because I met him at a restaurant in town after it was done, and we were just talking about it. And I said, "By the way, can that hold this much weight?" And the guy's like, "I didn't know you had that kind of weight going on." And he's like, "What are you doing?" And that's when I told him, I said, "Did you not see the massive machine in our shop?" I said,
Yeah.
"That thing weighs 15,000 pounds." He goes, "Oh, yeah, we might need to use that."
I mean, if there was a void in the concrete or underneath it, like that might break. But
Yeah, but I don't think they compacted it enough for how shallow it is.
See, now that might be what gets you.
So
But
and so because I don't think it was communicated between my dad and the guys pouring the concrete how much mass this thing was. And I even talked to my dad afterwards. I was like, Dad, did you not think to this? And he goes, Oh, yeah, I guess you're right. And I'm like,
yeah, it's not the
it's like,
concrete guy's fault. He did, I think,
yeah,
something like he did was pretty reasonable.
yeah.
Um,
Dad just told him he needed a pad right here. He didn't communicate the loads that were going to be needed at some point. You know,
yeah.
if we put any more equipment in there. So, worst case scenario, it cracks, and as long as nothing gets stuck, we'll just have to redo it. So, but we'll find out. I mean, the next machine we put in is probably not going to be that heavy. It'll be more whenever everything's coming out. And at that point, hopefully, we're a lot further down the road, and it's a minor issue.
Yep.
So, but yeah, we're getting close to getting the offices completed. They're going to be sheetrocking that tomorrow.
I didn't realize you guys didn't have those yet.
No, no. I mean, my family has been doing all of the renovations inside
Mm-hmm.
because family labor is awesome.
Yep.
And basically, my dad and my uncle have been helping out in their free time, and they've been spearheading basically all of the renovations around the shop. They've been managing. So whenever we redid the inside and we added the offices and we did the pad, heat and air and electrical, they would get our input on what we needed, and then they would they would either do it themselves or hire the correct people needed to get their work done for us so we could focus on the business. My family has a lot of experience with this. They've done a lot of renovation projects, and so it worked out really great. Just a few hiccups here and there, such as the pad. That could be a problem. It might be fine, but I'm just petrified of it breaking with a new machine on it. So,
Speaking of being petrified, we have Patreons, including a
petrified
couple new
Patreons.
ones. Petrified Patreons. It kind of alliterated. That's what I was going for. Including our first $25 a month member. That
Oh
is
my
Eric.
gosh.
Eric, if you want me to call you a specific name, shoot me a message. But Eric pledged at the $25 tier, which allows him to record the awkward goodbye.
Oh my goodness.
So I think the description says you get to record one per quarter, and
Oh my goodness.
I'll cycle through them. So, Eric, you get to record the awkward goodbye if you so choose. If not, we can work out some other thing, like maybe you can make an AI song with us or something. But we
Wow.
seriously appreciate that. Also, I don't remember if I gave a shout out to one of our new Patreons. I don't know how to say your name. I don't even think it is a name. I think it's like a company name or something. If it's not a company name, then I'm extra sorry, but it's like Ildorn at the $4 a month tier. So thank you, Ildorn. I'm sorry if I didn't give you a shout out last time. But then we have, of course, our $10 a month Patreons. Alexander, Chris Zajic from Zajic Precision, Scott at Design the Everything, EJ at Nocturnal Welding, Jake Brownson, Jamie Peacock at JSpec Engineering. I don't remember if I say your last name or not. Sorry, Jamie. And we have Simon and Chris from Thought Bomb Design. Those are all of our $10 a month Patreons. We, of course, appreciate all of our Patreons. If you sign up at any tier, you get access to the Discord server that nobody uses. And early access to all of our podcasts and all of the Audacity micro videos. You also, that's all paid tiers. All paid tiers get that. If you join at the free tier or you're a paid tier, you can participate in the audience Q&A on Patreon, which nobody did this week, which is really sad. But I think that's because of me
What about
screwing up
last
the
week?
schedule. Also last week, like this episode, I posted the Q&A on time last week, but
Oh.
I don't know.
What have you forgotten to give me, AJ?
I know the coin files. So everybody still gets a coin. There was
You know
one
what,
more
AJ?
thing
Why
I
don't you
was going to
send that to
say.
me right now while we're on the podcast so I can get
Okay.
it?
Well, but the problem is I haven't pieced the artwork together onto one coin.
Oh, okay, fine.
There was one
I'll give
more
you a break on
thing.
that because last week was horrible for you.
Yes, it was.
We'll give you a pass.
Oh, the other thing. I also just do like regular updates on Patreon. So like if we're not going to record that week, I will post on Patreon like, hey, we're not recording this week, expect it later, and stuff like that. I've actually been using Patreon a fair amount to do little updates and stuff like that. So
Good deal.
Patreon's a cool place. We appreciate you guys. The money right now, 100% of the money is going to go to our IMTS meetup, getting Harrison and I there, covering travel. I think at this point we have the room covered, and so everything. Yeah, we have the room covered, and so everything else is going to everything above and beyond is going to go to Harrison's plane flight.
Woohoo!
So after IMTS happens, then we will use that money to probably start by getting Harrison a upgraded camera, and then get both of us better mics. So
Is my camera really that bad? It might be. It's a pretty
I
crappy
don't know.
camera.
I see it. No, yeah, it's bad. I was gonna say I only see it over the bad internet connection, but
It's probably bad.
I
It's like a
also see the
Walmart
edited
$5
ones.
camera.
Yeah, we'll get you one of the good Logitech like C920s or whatever they are, and then after
Yeah.
that we'll get better mics, and then after that tacos. I don't know.
Well, we'll need to come up with something because I like the coins for the Patreons. I'd like to do more stuff like that. So I do. They're an excuse to make a fun project for fans of the show, and I enjoy that kind of stuff. It's an excuse for me to. It allows me to play around in the shop and feel like I'm productive.
Ooh, we can do stickers. I like stickers.
Stickers are good too.
Maybe we actually put together like a logo and stuff. That could be a good use of the money
Yeah. You think about
instead
it.
of the stock photo that I've used for the cover art, and it has served as our logo ever since then.
We'll use the money to improve the podcast in some way or improve their viewing of the podcast.
Yes. And I mean, eventually we'll get to where all of our stuff is pretty squared away. Then I don't know, we can pocket a few bucks. I like the idea of Monday night tacos.
Monday night tacos. Yeah, I don't know. I just like meeting people. Speaking of which, one other thing that I just remembered is I got the opportunity to meet a young man in my community who's starting a machine shop, and unfortunately, I can't remember his name or his company
You
off the
sound like
top of
you're
my head.
90. I met
I
a
know.
young man
Well, it's
in the
funny.
community.
It's funny because I don't know if he's going to listen to the podcast. I told him about the podcast. He listens to a lot of other ones, but he's 2 years behind us, or behind me specifically, and I just started talking with him, and my cousin found him online, and he had a Doosan SVM 4100, and I
Mhm.
hadn't seen one of those in person, and so he was in the area. So I reached out on Instagram and started talking, and I went and visited his shop, and he put it in his dad's garage shop, and he's doing it kind of as a part-time gig, and he's trying to get his feet underneath him and figure it all out. And so like we just started talking, and he's walking a very similar path to what we did, just a little bit different because we started out with the Tormach and he's starting out with the Doosan. But it was cool to see the machine, meet him, shake his hand, see that he's doing something very similar. And he's got a product that he started with, and he's been very successful with it so far.
Cool.
And so, but he'd like to do some job shop stuff. But super nice guy. I invited him to our shop if he's ever in the area. I'd give him a tour of our shop. But it was really cool to meet him, and I felt bad because we both wanted to talk, but I had a very limited time that I could stay there. And
Yeah.
so I'm sure I'll get to see him again, but it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it greatly. And I was very impressed with the Doosan, just from my initial viewing. It was a very quiet machine, ran very smooth. Um, and it just the finish on the parts was phenomenal. But that could be a speeds and feeds thing that I need to get dialed in as well. So,
I got to talk to EJ from Nocturnal Welding for a
oh
while.
yeah,
At least, gosh, I hope that's who it was. I'm going to feel really bad if I shouted out the wrong Patreon now. Yeah, he had some questions about like the container template method, and we went through that and kind of worked out all the little kinks for him. So that
yeah.
was a lot of fun. I was
I've had
very
some.
sick at the time. That was yesterday.
I had some good conversations with. I gotta find his name. Another patron or another listener. I think it was Nocturnal Welding as well.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah,
I didn't do it dumb. That was who it was.
yeah, yeah. No, he's been messaging me as well. He finally got his Xometry care package, so I think he's gonna be doing some Xometry stuff now.
Yep.
Yep,
That's one of the things we've talked about in the past.
yep, yeah. No, it was great to talk to him and any other listeners that want to reach out to either one of us. I've had a lot of great designs with people in the area. I got a guy who he just moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he does machining work for Banshees, the four wheeler.
Okay.
And I was like, looking through his Instagram page, and he makes some really wicked stuff. And he's just like, "Oh, I'm moving closer to you guys. I want to come and visit. Oh, your shop's probably awesome." I'm looking through his page. I'm like, "I want to visit your shop.
Yeah.
Your shop is awesome. Ours sucks compared to yours." So it was pretty funny. But no, it's exciting. I love going around and meeting and seeing shops and people. So much fun.
I have one last topic here before we
Okay,
start to
what you
wrap
got?
up. So, actually, I guess this is two topics, so they're kind of related. Like, I've been working on getting some more processes in place for my shop and how I do things.
Mm-hmm.
And last week in particular, like, basically, like, last week was not a good week for those of you that weren't aware. For me, things just went badly. And at the more local level, they went badly because I made mistakes. Like that's what the problem was. I was just doing dumb things, like breaking that pro tip, for example, or breaking tools. They were just me making dumb little mistakes that added up to bigger problems. Or I think at one point I forgot to order a tool. Like another place I ordered the wrong tool. Like, I didn't have enough material for one job. It was just like, all these little stupid mistakes. Um, but really, taking a step back, they were mistakes that were being made because of bad processes, and either because I was hurrying because I was late, or like right up against the deadline. Well, really, that was it. It was things that were not well thought out because I was rushing. And so after last week, I was like, okay, I cannot do this anymore. If I have more weeks like this, I will be done. I'll go back to a nice cushy engineering job or something. And it was a resume week. It was a week where I polished up my resume a little bit because it was going so
Oh
badly.
my.
And so coming out of that week, I was like, okay, I need to nail down some of these processes. Um, and so I went through, and my start for this is I built out this sheet here that
Mm-hmm.
has, I mean, it's not anything like groundbreaking, but it's basically like all the different steps of doing a job with little check boxes. And one of the things that causes me problems is I bite off more than I can chew on Xometry. I take too many jobs, and
Mm-hmm.
then like it'll be theoretically possible to get them all done, but then I'll get to like, I'll get to one job and something will go wrong and that'll push me back a day and it'll just cascade and cause all these failures. And that's what happened this week because the first job went badly and it just like murdered my entire schedule. So like part of this setup sheet or part of this, I guess it's a traveler. Part of this traveler is to help me regulate how many Xometry jobs I take. So there's like a section of like kind of preliminary stuff that I can do right after taking a Xometry job, like order
Mm-hmm.
materials and order tooling and program it. And so I have notes that like until those things are done, I am not allowed to accept any more Xometry jobs. And once I have the part programmed, once I have the tooling and material ordered, And once I have it worked into my schedule somewhere, then I can take more jobs.
So
And then on the back, I just have some basic like setup sheet notes, like, circle the tools that this job uses and circle the fixtures and where's the work coordinate system, kind of basic stuff. But
one thing that would be really easy to do that you should try to do is you should try to say every job has to be done 1 day in advance of its
oh,
actual
my
due
rule
date.
right now is 3 days in advance, but I break my rules.
Yeah, you need to make it. So we have a rule in our shop with Xometry jobs. We have to have the part fully machined and ready to ship the day before the job's due.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, if we get behind and we know we're not going to make that date, we have to work late until we're caught up to the point where it's going to ship on time. Which I know it sounds like you've probably been putting in a lot of time, which is just like you said, you're overloading your schedule too much. But once you thin your schedule out and you still run into those situations, then those rules start to make sense.
Yes.
Because if you have a rule that you have 3 days to get the job done, but you have no room and those problems cascade down, then your rule doesn't really help you that much. You just keep pushing it back further and
Correct.
further and further.
Yep. And related to this, though, something I've been working on separately for a while is just trying to figure out like better systems for inspecting things and like how do I document that and yada yada yada.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, my solution to that is to use the Fusion manual inspections feature. That has worked really well for me. And so far, Xometry has not complained about me submitting the Fusion inspection report instead of their own form.
I think for standard inspections, you can submit whatever form you want as long as it's measured and validated some way.
Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about here. The standard inspections. For their
Yeah,
certified
formal.
inspections or whatever they call them, formal inspections, you have to fill out their form, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But for the standard inspections, basically, I just removed an entire step of things that I have to do. Like, I just don't have to fill out that form anymore. And I have better records, in kind of a more usable form going forward. So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
So if you're using the machine to inspect, what happens if you have 4 or 5 ops and they all have inspections? Do you have a different page for each op?
so I am not using the machine to inspect.
Oh, you're not.
Yeah, I'm doing all manual inspections documented through Fusion.
Oh.
So I was about to say the next step is to start doing. I'm not going to use it as like my formal documentation for the parts, but as a informal kind of like making sure, like if I measure like the first 10th, 20th, 30th part, I want to have records of all of the parts in between, and I want to use the machine inspection for that, but it's
Okay.
not something that I would include like in a formal inspection report.
So I guess I
Um,
have no idea how you're using Fusion to inspect then.
Manual inspections. They're pretty simple. You just like right click, hit new manual inspection, and then kind of like using the inspect tool, you just like select all the dimensions that you want to record, and then you can just right click on that manual inspection. It shows up like a toolpath for some reason, but you can right click on that manual inspection toolpath, and you just type in all the dimensions you measure with calipers and mics.
Can you please make a YouTube video on this
I
for
will make a
everyone?
YouTube video on that. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then you can generate and print a really nice looking PDF
Yeah.
with all the dimensions.
If you also have a way to modify the setup sheet in Fusion to be something a little less page hungry, I'd be interested in that too.
That is something I have not played with. You can change what's on there.
Yeah, I know. We haven't messed with it too much. That's something that's on our list of goals is to get a usable Fusion setup sheet that goes down to one page 90% of the time or 80% of the time. Because the problem is the way Fusion setup sheet is done by default. It's got a photo that's like, a third of the page or something of every single tool. And so like what it prints out is like 10 pages long for something that uses like 5 tools, it seems like.
There are two different dialogues that you can make setup sheets from, and they work completely differently. Were you aware of that?
I was not.
There are, and I don't remember what the right dialogue is. I think you have to. I think you have to right click on the toolpath and hit like generate setup sheet, because there is a way that you can, yeah, setup sheet configurations is a button that you can press, and that'll pop up like a whole list of things that you can choose if you want them on your setup sheet or not. And one of the ways, which I believe is hitting the setup sheet button on the ribbon, that way does not obey the setup sheet configurations. But if you like right click on your NC program and click like create setup sheet or something like that, that will follow your configurations.
Interesting.
Or it might be backwards. I don't remember because I don't play with setup sheets very much.
Huh.
But that's just something to be aware of.
We've started doing that some because 90% of our work is going through the Haas. We're getting
Uh-huh.
to the point where I'll be programming and Weston will set up the machine and then I'll run the program once everything's set up. And I'll focus on programming. And so we're trying to get a system in place where I can pass the information along to Weston so he can get it working while I'm focusing on the actual programming side. Trying to break up those tasks and come up with a language that we can speak. That way, if
Mm-hmm.
we ever do hire someone else, all the bugs have already been ironed out.
Yep, that's a good way. It works that you're switching off back and forth for that reason.
Yep. Yep. So,
But I do want to start being able to use the probe in process inspection, but that requires like a surprising amount of hardware to get working on my old control. It's like I have to spend like $100 on cables or something like that to be able to connect the machine to my computer, because the old Haas's, they do not let you write to a file on the control in any
oh,
way.
really?
It is impossible, other than
So,
making an MDI file and saving it, but you can't do it from G code.
oh, that's annoying.
So the only thing you can do is deprint to over the serial port. So I have to hook my computer up via serial port. But of course, you can't use an off the shelf serial cable. You have to use a custom serial cable, which you can either make yourself or buy from CNC Repairman, which is what I'm going to do. But
Weird. So,
yeah, it's something I want to get set up. I'm not sure it's my highest priority to spend like $100 on. If it
yeah.
works, $100 is pretty cheap to get it running. So
Yeah. Um,
shout out
I
to
think.
Nick from P3D for holding my hand through all of this probing and manual inspection stuff. By the way,
Oh, really?
yeah, I would not have gotten this far without him. So thank you, Nick.
All I gotta say is that the machining community is awesome, and that I don't think there's hardly any person that I've ever asked a question to who hasn't answered it. And so, like once you're a part of this community and you start at like it's so easy to reach out and ask people questions and get an answer back. It's mind blowing.
Yep, and people who will go out of their way to help you.
Yeah, yeah.
Like with this optical comparator, like I'd never used one before. I was just figuring it out, and so like Stefan helped me out a lot, and a couple guys on the Instant Machinist Discord. Though they
Yeah.
all were very offended with my Gridfinity baseplate. So
So you got a teaser of what the video comments are going to be
yeah.
like.
There's going to be like
Burn,
3 people who understand it and think it's funny, and then everyone else is just going to be like, why?
burn the witch, burn her. Oh, that's great. No, that'll be fun. It'll be another controversial video, which means it'll have a lot of feedback and it'll be a very
Yeah.
popular one. It's the weird thing about YouTube. Sometimes creating controversy makes the videos more popular.
Yep. All right. Well, my voice is about shot.
All right. I think I'm good as well. All right, guys. Time to say goodbye. We appreciate you hanging out with us.
Wait,
Oh.
wait. Sorry, anyone who clicked off. IMTS meetup. I've been meaning to say this. IMTS meetup confirmed at the Tormach booth. Tormach is having a booth.
Woohoo!
Uh, Monday at 2 p.m. IMTS meetup Monday 2 p.m. So Harrison, that's your deadline, by the way.
Okay. Oh yeah, I do need to be there by then.
I can pick you up at the airport if you need me to.
Okay. That's exciting. I really want to see as much as I'm complaining about the 1500 MX killing my opportunity to sell my machine, I really want to see one in person. So that'll be cool.
You can do so at the IMTS meetup, 2 o'clock Monday. Dylan Jackson is also hosting a meetup that'll have probably much more people on Wednesday at the Kern booth. I'm not sure about the time. I will be there as well at that one. I assume you will, Harrison.
I'm going to try to be. I need to figure out how many days we can be gone. If we just plan for it, we'll be fine. I just need to make sure Weston's on board.
Okay. I understand that Monday is not the most convenient day for most people. The theory behind the Monday meetup is that you can meet people right at the beginning of IMTS. And so that one, you'll just kind of have friends as you go around the show that you can see. But if you need a convention buddy, you can find a convention buddy to walk the floor with.
I need a traveling buddy.
Yeah. I hung out with Norman and Fidget Things for all of last IMTS.
Yeah, I'm super jealous you went to the last one. All right, guys, I guess now it's officially time to say goodbye, and thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks again to all the Patreons. I know we had a shout out to you earlier, but we appreciate it greatly, and we will get you a coin at some point this year. And for everyone else, thanks for hanging out and following along, and we love all the comments and hearing from you guys, so keep it up. And this is Harrison with Precision Ingenuity, signing out with AJ from Audacity Micro. You look lost.
I'm working on something. Oh, yeah. Oh, no. Eric, this could be you. You got to record something here. Bye.